Welcome to the final session of this craft masterclass today. With me, Tim Palmer, who is a cinematographer working in drama, credits Doctor Who, Critical, Suspicions of Mr. Witcher. We're going to see clips from all of those. Award-winning cinematographer. Steve Robinson mainly works in documentary and right on the edge of difficult, intimate access documentary with some of the very best documentary makers, authored documentary makers you'll have heard of. He's also multi-award winning. And we've got 3 clips a piece to go through. We've also got a bit of behind the scenes. And we're going to need again to go quite fast. So first of all, though, just a quick show of hands. Who shoots? Okay, you're going to learn from the best. So, Steve, just a kind of quick one line. How did you get into this and what does it mean to you?
It came out of photography, really, an interest in photography in my teenage years. Those experiments in the bathroom at night time, developing a piece of photographic paper in a tray and seeing the image come up in front of you. That was tremendously exciting, and I think that's where it started.
Tim, a bit same for you.
Similarly, photography. I was an editorial photographer, mainly fashion and portraits. And my interest was the magic I saw was seeing something in front of you and then taking it somewhere else. The sort of the stylized aspect of photography, and that naturally fed into a desire to create light for moving pictures.
And do you think that sensibility of stills photography, which can be incredibly set up and composed, translates into the moving image?
I think you're using the same tools. Yeah, your composition is absolutely crucial to both stills and moving picture. So, yeah, it's the same skills required.
And I would say definitely lighting as well, because if you're used to lighting people for stills, then that'll help you an awful lot when it comes to lighting actors for moving pictures.
So all these things we're going to deal with in the session, but we're going to kick off, first of all, with a clip from Doctor Who, which Tim works on.
It's a bit long. It's quite a long clip, but I only chose it because it comprises so many elements of what is the best of Doctor Who.
So it comes thick and fast. There are also a lot of visual effects in this, so try and concentrate because we're going to get Tim to unwrap it all afterwards. So could we see Doctor Who, please?
Okay, do we like him?
Cos, you want to know about the suit?
Just colour and shape. Don't need anything detachable.
Musculature, good to go.
That was quick.
They're showing off. Art department want to talk about skin tone.
Yes, I do. I don't trust the sensors. I want to take a look myself.
We're in a hurry. We're not trying to win an award.
Yeah, that's what you said when we made Rasputin green.
Okay, get your fat one up there. Run!
Yes, Captain.
Harry's going to eyeball. Everyone else good to go. Please! What do you want? What are you doing?
Musculature? Online.
5'11", confirmed.
Harriet, are you up there yet?
Welcome. You are unauthorized. Your death will now be implemented.
Harriet, have you updated your privileges?
Yes, of course I have. Look, I'm staff, see? Look, staff!
You are authorized. Your existence will continue.
I don't understand. Harriet, ship!
5 seconds to eyeball. Shades 44 to 89, peaking at 60. Standard density. He's sweating a bit, so compensate.
What are you?
All hands, prepare for desolation. Prepare for desolation. Okay. Clean up. Who is he?
Eric Zimmerman, loyal member of the Nazi Party, guilty of Category 3 hate crimes.
Well then, leave him to the antibodies.
Welcome. You are unauthorized. Your death will now be implemented. Welcome. You will experience a tingling sensation and then death. Remain calm while your life is extracted.
What do you want? Who let you in here? What's wrong with the shock absorbers?
Problem in the knees, so we don't have to run.
Do not call for help. This room has been sound screened. You have been found guilty. Justice mode activating.
Hang on. This is 1938. We're too early. We need to go later in his time stream.
Something else. We've got incoming.
On screen. What the hell is that?
Almost applause. I think you'd admit an awful lot to go at there. So
Yeah.
two different setups. You've obviously got the Nazi setup and the spaceship setup. But my first question is, because I think it will be interesting for the audience to hear, how long do you have to shoot an episode of Doctor Who?
Usually it's, on paper, it's 13 days. And I would say, I've done quite a few of it. Usually it stretches, depending on how VFX heavy the episodes are. I think this one we ended up at about 15 or 16 days because there was so much to do. You often end up with 2 or 3 units shooting at the same time at the end because there's mop-up crews from all the other episodes who still have to finish their episodes.
Okay, so let's begin to unpack it a bit. So the Nazi registry, where obviously you have got the amazing tessellation, did they call it?
Tessellator, yes. I mean, it's all, everything that you see there was all sets that were built. The spaceship interior, the chancery, the funny sort of spotlit blue tubey place. And the sets were, if you look at them, you'd think absolutely nothing of it. It just looks like a few bits of flattage hammered together. But once you get in there and turn on a few lights, they come to life. It's the genius of the production designer, Michael Pickwoad, who has real vision for the show.
And obviously, I mean, you described the set as being quite large. The Nazi registry is large.
It is big.
Where were your lights?
I don't know how sort of familiar you are with particular types of lighting, but with big spaces, you have to use very big lamps quite far away. So I would use, I think I had a mixture of Dino lights and 20Ks coming through the windows, each window, and that gave a sense of not just the ambient skylight that you'd have, but also quite hard directional sunlight. That's one of the keys to lighting interiors realistically, is not just thinking about light coming through windows as if is to think about all the ambience outside that would also be lighting coming through the window. So all the skylight, city light, everything else, as well as the light that punches through. So we had
And what sort of shots do you have to deliver to enable the VFX guys to go on and create that kind of extra layer of magic?
Well, on Doctor Who, there's a resident visual effects supervisor who's there with us for every setup, and they're very experienced. They've been doing it for years. I think at the time that I was doing it was the Mill, and I don't want to sort of sound like I'm shirking my responsibilities, but they tell me what to do, and they say, this is a green screen shot. You've got to light it like that. This is a lock off. Do that. If you're going to move the camera, make sure you put it on a repeatable head, and we'll get the tracking markers in, etc. So I find that I'm very much led by them. It's fairly straightforward, actually. There's nothing that complicated there. Some green screen, lots of lock-offs, and then actually a lot of shots where we didn't do anything, and the poor guys in the visual effects end up having to rotoscope everything. So which does happen a lot, but they do it very well these days.
Just explain the importance of the locked-off shots that you are delivering for the VFX guys.
Well, for example, where the chap sort of changes into the other, morphs into the other person with the tiling. I mean, again, it's really very straightforward. You have the camera fixed on a tripod, so it's not moving at all, and you put one actor in front of it, and then one costume, you put the other actor in front of it, and the other costume, background stays the same, and we didn't even do any green screen on that. And then they just meld the two images, and all the tiling is done by CGI. It's all painted in. I mean, one tricky shot there, actually, probably the trickiest shot to do was that zoom out of the eye, that close shot from the eye, because there's no lens that I know of that can focus that close on an eye, on a pupil, and then pull out even to a traditional close-up. So it was a combination of the most powerful zoom I could get. It was a 20-to-1 zoom with 3 layers of diopters in front of that. So that enabled me to focus literally on the pupil. And you couldn't do a track out because the slightest bit of camera movement would send the focus out totally. It had to be a locked-off focus. And then we just zoomed out of the eyeball. So with that 20-to-1 zoom and the diopters, I was able to zoom out from the pupil to just between the eyebrow and the cheekbone, and then reposition the camera back, marked out the end of the last frame, and did the zoom again. So it's actually a meld of about 3 different zoom shots to get that.
And Doctor Who, obviously, is an iconic format. How closely do you work with the director on it? And are you allowed to bring any of your particular style to it, or is it,
Yes, it's complete and utter freedom. I always had the brief from the producers that we actually don't care what you do, just make it look great. Give us the Doctor Who that we all love and our audiences love, and you do it any way you want to do it. We'll tell you if we don't like it, but fortunately, they never did. So no, it's an very open brief, and the directors are very.
May I ask, prior to filming, at what point would you become involved in that, a production like that? I mean, would you have a week, 4 hours a day?
About a week.
On
Doctor Who, very little prep time.
So any input to the storyboard or?
Sometimes. I mean, I think my input would come when it's. I'll put it this way: my input is listened to if the decision is schedule based. If I tell them that, listen, if we shoot it like this, it's going to take all night. And we only have till midnight to do it. To shoot, then they'll rejig things. If I tell them, if you do it like this, it's not going to look so nice, they're probably not going to listen to me. No. It's always to do with time and money.
Yeah, of course, like everything.
We're going to move on now to the first of Steve's clips, which is the complete antithesis of everything that Doctor Who is. This is a documentary film that was made for Cutting Edge. The director is Jane Triez, who you have a relationship with and have worked with before. It's called Mum, Heroin and Me. The clip is, I think, quite a hard watch. Do you want to set it up a little bit before we see it, Steve?
This film is about heroin addiction and what that does to a family. We filmed, it's in Brighton, and we filmed with Hannah, the girl you'll see, for about 9 or 10 months, I think. I think we shot it in 2007, I think. And this scene you're about to see is the first time we see her injecting in a car park. And it's quite a powerful scene.
It's a very powerful scene, so I mean, I have to admit that I was watching it like that, but I think when you watch it, and we'll obviously take some questions after Steve has talked about it, just think about where was Steve when he was shooting this, because it's in a public place. So should we see the clip and then talk about it?
Sure.
Thank you.
What do you do now, Hannah?
I've got loads of blood in it now.
Can you use it with loads of blood?
I'm just going to do... block. It starts to congeal.
As well, I can't wait to get clean up. Something to help us, you know.
Babe, I can't do it.
You can't ask me to do it, not there. Your feet do hurt, babe. You know that.
Pretty powerful scene, I think we'll all admit. And unlike drama, you don't say to anybody, can you just do that again?
Not very often, no.
So talk us through that and tell us how you achieved that scene.
Well, I didn't know what to expect, of course, as you don't most of the time when you're shooting observationally like that. So we were at the car park, it was night time, and in fact, I don't think I knew that was going to happen at all. But it was obvious that was going to happen, and I liked the juxtaposition of what they were doing, the intimacy, what they were doing with that, that industrial environment, and I liked the way that Hannah had all that stuff on the floor. That initial move up was a sort of deliberate thing. I wanted to sort of come to find them. That was all deliberate, and I liked the awkwardness, the edginess of both of Ricky and Hannah. I also wanted to be able to see them in that environment. So there's wider shots when you've got the sort of the sixth floor sign and the lighting conduiting and all that, the concrete and the stairs and all that. That was all part of it. And then you go straight into this sort of size, and then down to Hannah's dirty fingernails and injecting. And then obviously I didn't cut it, obviously, but you see the Brighton beach, and that's the other side of their life, because most of the time they're actually very happy and very happy with us being there as well. And then seeing in the methadone clinic, I love that shot. Deliberately went in through the window to shoot the shot of Hannah at the end through the glass, because I think she looks absolutely beautiful like that. And I wanted that to come across, because it'd be very easy to portray them as being sort of dirty and scuzzy. But actually, they were both fantastic, actually. And we filmed with them for about 9 months, I think. And I wanted them both to come out with some sort of dignity.
How big was the crew in the car park scene? How many off there were you?
Jane, myself, and sound recordist.
Okay. Were they radio mic'd?
No.
So he was boom.
Yeah.
But interestingly enough, even on the wide shots, you can clearly pick up dialogue, which you
Yeah.
had to carefully shoot round, so you got enough non-sync that you could make it
Yes,
work.
I mean, I tend to work on that sort of film. I would work with people I've worked with a long time, and we have a working relationship. So they, although they can't see the shot, they know often by the position of my body what the shot is. And I tend to shoot that way, mostly on a longish lens and mostly handheld. And so actually it makes the sound recorder's job quite easy.
And did you, I want to ask this because obviously we put it in the context of everything else we've heard over the 2 days. Did you not feel that you were intruding when you were in those big close-ups and you were actually tight on her face or her feet when the needle's going in?
No.
And that was because you had built a relationship with them?
Crucial, absolutely crucial.
Yes.
So that wasn't day one.
Yes.
That, I don't actually remember how long into the shoot that was, but certainly we had been filming with them probably for a couple of months, I should think. I mean, not every day. We may have done 6 days filming before that. But crucially, the relationship would have been there already, and not necessarily with me initially, but certainly with the director. The way that Jane does work, is I think she met Hannah at least 6 months before we filmed, and would have had an ongoing relationship with her and her mother and Ricky. And of course, that is the job I've done, frankly.
Yes.
You have that relationship and you have that trust.
Yes.
And so Hannah clearly trusted us. She trusted me.
Yes.
I trusted her to trust me. And those things are absolutely crucial. Absolutely crucial.
Yes. Okay. Any questions at this stage? Can you wave? Yeah. Okay, there's somebody there in the white shirt. Anybody this side? And then the other mic can go to the back, please. Here, thank you.
Obviously, that's quite a hard-hitting piece and quite difficult to watch. I found my heart palpitating as it was going on. As a cameraman, how do you almost distance yourself from it to be able to capture footage which is quite uncomfortable? Because I can't imagine actually being there, filming it myself. I'd find it quite awkward and quite...
Well, like I said, I think it's crucially the relationship you build up, because we wouldn't have been there had they not trusted us. And but I don't really think I distanced myself. I felt very strongly about Hannah and Ricky, and I thought I wanted them to be in safe hands, because you're absolutely right. It could potentially be a highly exploitative situation, and maybe some of you think it was, but I didn't feel that at all. I wanted, I suppose, I wanted the camera to capture what Hannah was going through, and that often is in here. That's the most important. That's the best way of conveying feeling, your face, really.
And we have a question there. Yep.
Well, the gentleman just answered the question, because I wanted to ask if you were, in a way, emotionally affected by the shooting, and you choose to do this with the precision of a surgeon, if it was surgery, because clearly you're passionate about your work. That could be clearly seen, and the results. And so you just gave the answer. Thank you very much, sir.
Well, let me ask a subsequent question. Have you worked on anything that you have found almost unbearable?
For what reason? Not in terms of intruding, no. No, I don't think I have. Because I wouldn't shoot it.
No, I don't mean in terms of intruding, I meant in terms of emotional attachment.
Oh, crikey, yeah. Well, you shoot things that make you cry.
Yes.
Yeah. No, that's right, absolutely.
So I think that probably answers your question. I mean, you know, I too, I should have said I come from a filmmaker and television background myself. I spent a very long time in hospitals shooting babies being born, and every single time we all cried, all of us, because it was just such a privilege to be there. So, but I think you can still do that and keep your professional distance to do the job.
I would say, I think you have to have that.
Yes.
If you haven't got that emotional vulnerability, in a sense, the empathy, then you shouldn't be doing something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't aware of it at the time. I've learned that about myself.
Yes.
Through filming, and we'll probably talk about that later. But
yes.
That's what you learn through documentary. You learn a great deal about yourself.
Okay, let's rock and roll on to something a little bit more cheerful. I will come to your question at the back, I promise you. I'll try and get round. We're going to now see Tim's second clip. This is from a Sky drama. It's a medical drama called Critical.
Yes, it was a very rather gory medical drama, but actually the clip you're going to see has none of that at all. And I wanted to show you because it's extremely technical. It's probably one of the most technically demanding scenes I've ever had to shoot, and it's all rear projection. It was a 15-minute, you're not seeing 15 minutes, don't worry. It was a 15-minute dialogue scene between two people driving in two different cars, a phone conversation, and practicalities demanded we not shoot it for real outside at night on low loaders. So we decided to investigate rear projection. And at the end, I've just I had a bit of behind the scenes footage, and I've just strung together a few random shots that show you the whole setup at work. It's quite an eye-opener, I must say.
So let's see the clip of the actual, the cut clip first, and then we'll see a quick behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So this is Critical, please.
Okay, if you just let me explain.
Doesn't matter.
Ben, it's important to me that you understand the reasons why...
Understand what? Really? What?
Glenn.
You and Tom have a nice life.
Glenn Boyle, calling.
Hello, this is Glenn Boyle. I can't take your call.
Glenn Boyle, calling.
Glenn, the last thing I wanted was to hurt you.
You needed help, and I came running. But you knew exactly what would happen, and you just didn't give a shit. Did you?
I called you in a moment of weakness because I needed you. I convinced myself Almost certain you wouldn't come. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. You broke up.
I said that I did.
Yes, you did. 2 years too late.
Oh, come on.
I lost our baby, Glenn. I was on my knees. That's when I needed you.
You wanted me to go.
I didn't. You ran. Just like you're running now.
Do you want to show the behind the scenes?
Yeah,
quickly?
why not?
Yeah,
While you've got that fresh in your head,
exactly.
have a little look at.
So have a little look at. This is the behind the scenes clip of how that was achieved.
What's the best order of
That's the plan.
Playback and action. How's that for you, Tim?
It's all good.
So should we jump to the...
We do earn our living in strange ways, don't we? So you have your principal actor sitting in a car in a studio the size of an aircraft hangar with the exteriors filmed by another team on a screen behind.
Well,
Take it from there.
Well, so really the hero of this is a chap called Lester Dunton who has his own back projection company, and he's a true expert in all things to do with projection. And he initially went, the key to it is to get the background plate, so he's got a specially modified van with holes cut out in various bits of it, and he can fit 8 Alexas, up, down, front, side, 3/4 back, front, and he just drove the routes. And
Alexa is a particular camera. We're going to come on to that.
Drove the routes. The scene started in the urban area, which you saw here, and then it goes into the suburbs, which is dark, and then actually out into open countryside, which is very dark. So he drove the whole route and filmed all the plates, and that's what we projected and what he projected. So as you notice, it's not just a screen behind. There's a screen up above the windscreen too. Like that, which he projects up into, which is what gives you all the reflections across the windscreen as you're driving and the play of light across the face. So you see the real reflections of the city streets in the glass. And he also had other projectors set up all around the camera, mini, tiny ones, where he could actually project the footage directly onto the actors' faces as well, as we needed to do it. And there was a brief little, I don't know whether you noticed, there was a brief moment where you saw me in the gloom with on the dimmer desk and the monitor. So really, I set it all up, and then once the scene got going, I'd have a monitor, and every lamp was on a different dimmer channel, and I'd basically just play the lights up and down depending on what I saw in the background. You know, if there's a car going past, I could see it, so I could flash a light up on the face. And if there was a tail lamp going past, someone braking in the background, I could flash a red light, backlight, 3/4 backlight. So it was very intuitive. It goes very quickly and it's very easy once you're up and running, because there's no turning back. Once they're driving. You can't stop it, so you just have to go with it. But it does take a long time to rig.
So going back to script stage, because obviously you would get a script and you would do your version of a shooting script, how you're going to shoot it. Had the decision already been made before you came on that you weren't going to try and do this for real, or did you feel that it was a 15-minute sequence, is that right?
It was never, ever going to be done for
real,
ever. It was impossible. It would have cost, it would have cost more than the whole episode budget just to shoot that scene, and it would have taken 3 or 4 weeks, I would think, to do that at night. So that was never going to happen. I mean, there was talk about green screen, but why do that when you can do back projection? I mean, I think it looks fantastic, really good.
It's
very convincing.
Very convincing, and crucially, what you've done there in that scene is you've suspended disbelief. I think that's, I was watching it, and had I not known that it was actually a back projection, I would have thought, crikey, that's...
I didn't know when I first watched it.
And that's what that's what you're doing all the time with a camera.
Yes.
Really.
And then you can make it look so much more interesting because you've got control over a dozen different lights, all doing different things, which would be impossible to do on a low loader.
Yes, yes. Any questions at this stage? There's one here. Third row back. And then second mic down here to the lady second in.
How did you get to synchronize the lighting and the actors' movements of the wheel with the actual sequence of the car?
Well, the lighting I can see that. I had a monitor, so I was able to see what was being projected around them. So I was in control of synchronizing the lighting. I mean, some of it's a little bit off, but for the most part, it's all right. What you brought up is quite interesting in that what we discovered early on, actually, when we set up for the very first shot, is that it was all there. They were driving behind the wheel and everything was going on around them. But because the sequence actually involved one car following another, they didn't know where they were. So Lester rigged a monitor up in front of the driver, projecting the plate of the point of view plate. So the actual actor who was driving could see where they were driving. If you understand, and they could see the car in front, and they could time all their driving action, gear changes, turning of the wheel, etc., looking in the rearview mirror to what they would actually be seeing if they were driving. I don't know whether that answers your question.
Yeah, it does.
The question here.
Hi, Tim.
Hello.
Would you say the first clip that we saw is more visual effects? Like, is that done in post? And then the second clip, to me, seemed like practical effects. So do you have a preference as a director of photography towards visual effects or practical in camera and where you can physically have control of things?
In all honesty, it's so out of my hands, those decisions. Being a cameraman, the more one can do in camera, the better. Really. It'll always look more convincing, but there are times where you just have to stop and say, well, this is going to take too long to do it in camera, and it's actually going to be too expensive because we'll have to hire all this extra equipment, whereas a quick little, a couple of minutes in online will sort it out. In fact, there was remind me of the story. The director of Critical, the first director, he's a very funny and informed person, John East, and as we were going into it, he worked out, he said, right, this production is costing £167.70 a minute to make. We're doing it for 10 months, and he said, I've worked it out. I know what the whole budget is. It's costing £167.70 a minute to do. So when the props person says, oh, I don't have that beaker, I've got to go to this prop store and get it. That's going to take 3 minutes, and that's going to cost £480. And I'm going to say, look, CGI can paint one in, and it's going to take them 30 seconds, and that's going to cost £70. So don't go. I'm going to do it this way.
It's come to that now, hasn't it?
So do you have a relationship with post in this kind of the same way, Steve, or is what you shoot kind of much more, I hesitate to use the word pure, but...
Tricky word, pure. Yes, I have much less to do with post-production, although I think all these 3 clips I'm showing and the work I like to do, one's collaborating with an editor who knows your work and and knows how to cut it, and is also crucially a very good editor, and that's of course the most important thing, their collaboration.
Well, which leads us very nicely on to the next clip, which both you and the editor won BAFTAs for. This is a film called The Secret Life, or Amish: A Secret Life. Again, it's another intimate access film. The director, Lynn Alloway, got inside the Amish community, the only filmmaker really to have done so to that extent. So take it from there.
Well, actually, there were a few. In fact, this is the 3rd film that BBC made. It's for the BBC. And they'd already made 2 films in an Amish community, 2 observational films. But I say they weren't very good. They weren't very good films, really, if I'm honest. And Charlotte Moore, the BBC commissioner, said, I want Lynn to make a film with a family, and this is what we made. And it was about finding the right family and, again, forming that relationship with them over a period of time, and then before we started filming. And everything on this film, everything worked. Everything worked. Well, you'll see the results.
I should just say that, of course, the Amish live a Victorian life. They don't believe in cameras.
You must know that, surely. Everyone knows about the Amish now. There's been so much on TV about the Amish. Yes, they live. That's right. In fact, most times you will see an Amish family on TV. There'll be children because they until they are baptized into the Amish church as adults, which is normally 18 upwards, they are free to be filmed. It's only once they're baptized into the Amish church photography is forbidden. So what was very unusual about this film is we were able to film with this family who let us in, crucially, and they let us in because they had their own doubts about the Amish church, or they were Amish. They had their own doubts about where the church was going. And in fact, I should have said this, our being there, because we filmed this again over about a year, I think, this film, our filming of them was actually the secret, that the rest of the community they suspected, I think, some of them, but they never actually knew for sure until the film came out, of course. But that was a risk the family were prepared to take, and they knew as a result of the film they would be excommunicated, which in fact is what they were wanting to happen anyway. So it was a mutually beneficial film in lots of ways.
Should we take a look at the Amish film, please?
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
It's 4:30 in the morning. Every day, Miriam gets up to cook breakfast for Dave before he goes to work at 5.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Steve.
2 eggs and a cornmeal mush.
It's my ferrite. Heavenly Father, I ask for a blessing upon the hands that prepared this food. I ask for a hedge of protection around my family today as I go to work, as Jacob and Daniel go to school, as Miriam and Benyu and Kate are at home. Father, I ask for a hedge of protection around them all, and that you will keep them safe, and if it be your will, that we could be together tonight at our supper table. In Jesus' holy name we pray. Amen.
Dave usually gets a lift to work from one of his staff who isn't Amish. The rules forbid car ownership, but there's nothing to stop people from accepting a lift or using a taxi.
Kom. Is du ready for Essa? Danny, Jacob, let's eat. Jacob, do the blessing for her. Okay.
Ni Gud, man får dessa sara som ska vara. Tänk på sig på det dina. Tänk på det lilla stiv. Men du, jag har mycket nå. Man ser på när Essa henne. Vi ska bara se dusen. Vi ska se Essa från Stavili.
Yes.
And do not say Parium by the Shogun, be the dad by the Alvis. And the man and the James indicate that he gets a son on Amen.
Amen. Nå, hvad der? Den er oven ude.
Hej, Slesia.
Hey, have a good day. God bless you.
Hey, see ya.
See you, Jacob.
Quite something when you have the child offering a blessing to the cameraman and the director.
It's the one and only time it's happened, I think. Very sweet. But that's, actually, that illustrates that relationship we had with them.
Yes.
Again, it goes back to the same thing in documentary. You're telling a story like that. It is about that relationship you build up with people. That's with Lynn. So there's just two of us on that. So I work with Lynn Alloway quite a lot. We've done, I don't know, maybe a dozen films together, and it's always the same way. So she will direct and do the sound, usually quite badly, and I do the pictures. But that's very useful having that different, because we both have a different sort of relationship with the subjects we're filming, with the family. And that is incredibly useful. So I think it's very different from, I think, if she were on her own, and she does shoot her own films as well. If she were on her own, that would be a very different sort of film for lots of reasons. But having that separate relationships is useful. I got on with them very well. I love them. They're a lovely, lovely, lovely family, and I wanted that to come across in the film, and of course it does. I think, as you universally sort of regarded as a lovely family. And I think lots of people have wondered about the Amish. It's not such a bad life after all, you know.
And you, presumably, because you weren't allowed to be seen by the rest of the community, you were shooting from indoors out.
Well, I like that anyway. I do that quite often. I like to see a landscape. I like to place people within the landscape in which they live, but I also like seeing landscape from inside through a window, and vice versa. I quite like looking at windows. Are very useful devices, and doorways are very useful devices. So we were in the house a lot, but also it's not in the scene, but they move. They don't have a car, but they go around in a buggy, and so we were in the buggy a lot of the time, and you are hidden in the buggy. They're deliberately designed so you can't see the women, basically. Yes. And so we were in there too, and that was a very confined space, but it did mean we could eavesdrop on that world.
Yeah,
really.
I'm conscious of the time, but what I wanted to, I know that both of you will say that it's very much about your eye and where you position the camera and how you light it. But just in case there are people who are interested technically here, what array of cameras do you use? What do you shoot on? Do you use one thing, or you adapt what you use for different situations?
Tricky question now, that is.
Tim, do you want to start whilst Steve is thinking about it?
You use whatever is the right camera for the job. The de facto camera, drama camera, is the Arri Alexa. Now it just works very well. I like it because it feels and behaves just like the film cameras that I grew up with. It's a very familiar handling piece of machinery, and it's made for filmmakers as opposed to technicians who like to see lots of wheels and knobs and buttons.
Steve?
Well, yes, I think the reason I was unsure how to answer that is right now there's so many different cameras out there that you have your sport for choice, and that's a distraction. actually, to what's really important, which is what's happening in front of the camera. But I tend to use one camera, and I make what I have fit, really, because I think you can get so bogged down in lenses and cameras and codecs and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. It doesn't really matter, really, as long as it feels right. What's happening in front of you is...
It really doesn't matter. I mean, if it's a good story and what's in front of the camera is interesting, it sounds like a cliche, but you could make it just as well on an iPhone.
Yeah, absolutely right.
It's all about the content and the characters. It's not about technology behind it.
Okay. Moving swiftly on to your next clip. Do you want to set it up and explain why this is important?
Well, this was from it's very different. This is a period drama I shot a couple of years ago called Suspicions of Mr. Witcher. It takes set in the 1860s, Dickensian London, grimy streets, oil lanterns, firelight, moonlight, etc. And I really wanted to, for this, I thought it would be a good opportunity really to push the low light capabilities of the Alexa to the absolute maximum. And I was very determined to shoot in natural light as much as possible, which meant shooting with scenes with oil lanterns. Oil lamps should be lit by the oil lamps. It's similar to what was done with Wolf Hall this year with candlelight. And I knew that the Alexa was very capable because I've shot it in low light, available light on the streets at high ISOs, and it looks absolutely fine. But in those situations, there's actually quite a lot of light spilling around everywhere, and I wanted to see what it could do with very precise, focused single sources, low light single sources, and I tested the camera with old Zeiss super speed lenses, which are open up to T1.3, and the test results were fantastic. So I saw no reason why it wouldn't be a successful
those
shoot.
Tests involved you filming in a
black room,
with
someone walking around
with the oil lantern
and lighting things with it and seeing. And obviously, you have to it's one thing having the primary source light the thing you want it to light, but at the same time, the source itself needs to look realistic. And traditionally, usually what would happen is if you did that, then the source would be very blown out and look quite nasty. But the Alexa has such an incredible dynamic range that the actual flame source in the oil lantern still held detail, even shot wide open. It's
Should we
very
see
impressive.
the clip, please?
Creed. Here we are, number 1.
What was the cause of death?
I'll check.
Winter fever. Who authorized the body to be sent here?
Dr. Casement.
Casement? You sure? Has he authorized any more bodies to be sent here for dissection?
Yes, on the 9th. A Samuel Deacon. Suicide from Hopewood House Asylum.
You still have the body?
We should have. Number 8. This winter cold suits the dead. They keep very well. In high summer, well, you can imagine. You're in luck.
So all the warm light on the faces was only the oil lamp, the little bit of blue light in the background, which was my own lighting, just to give a little bit of contrast and depth to the far reaches of the set. But,
And how much time did you spend preparing for that shoot? Did you have the luxury of time on your side, or?
No, not really. No, I think it was one of those ones that was split over. We did all the recce's just before Christmas, and then we broke for, it was a 2-week break for Christmas, and we started filming on the 3rd of January. And it was a very fast, busy drama, that, so there would have been, we were shooting 5 or 6 minutes a day, usual stuff. So, but I knew that it would work. I'd had 1 day's testing prior to filming. I knew it would work. The difficulty on a scene like that, because as you can tell, it was all Steadicam as well, shooting wide open on super speeds, and the hero of that particular scene would be the focus puller. I mean, phenomenal focus on that.
Yes.
I can't believe how good he was and what he did on that. It was nearly, I mean, impossible, but he nailed it.
Yeah. And do you tend to work with teams of people like focus pullers you trust?
I think especially these days with this, it's sort of symptomatic of the way we're all starting to go now with the Alexa and low light and shooting wide open, and focus is the biggest problem now, in keeping everything sharp. Whereas, when I started out, we'd have to light up quite a lot because we were filming on low ASA film stocks, and you'd always get a decent stop. But now, the tendency is just to go out and shoot and whatever's there, and you end up at 1.4 or 2, and it doesn't give anyone a chance.
But a scene like that...
That's why I think you see a lot of rather ropey stuff out there.
Yeah.
Focus is not good.
Yes, but a scene like that you would block out several. I mean, you'd have several rehearsals, would you?
Really, not in that, because it's a director I've worked with a lot in the past, and very impatient man. He just wants to get on with it.
Yeah.
So we've all got to be ready and get it right.
But you might have to go again.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But maybe once or twice at the most. Otherwise, and then he'll say, "That's enough. I'm moving on. Don't want it."
And you'd be watching on a monitor yourself. You'd be watching on a monitor yourself.
Yes. Sometimes it's not really. It's a bit counterproductive because you can't. By the time you're straining to see things, you might as well just watch the scene. I know what the exposure is. Trust the focus puller to call it if he's not sharp. He knows they're experienced enough to be able to tell when they haven't got it. So.
Yeah.
So from 5 to 6 minutes a day, we're going to go on to the final clip, which this is a film you've been involved with for over 5 years, Steve, isn't it? So
That's right. It wasn't intended to be a 5-year film, but it was the funding, independent funding, was scarce, and so what was initially going to be probably filmed over 2 years became 5 years. And in fact, so it follows a Native American family who live on Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota, and it was about they're a well-known warrior family. Their name is Dull Knife, and it was really about their history. That was the intention. And as the years went by, the children, of which there are many, crucially the one boy, he was 13 years old when we started, is now 19, and the film has evolved as a film about him coming of age, and it's about his relationship with his father and about his relationship with the wider community and the inherent racism in the States, actually, against Native Americans. It's quite a dark film. And this is the end of the film.
Okay. We should say that this is still a work in progress.
It's a work in progress. Yes, actually. Well, this clip you're about to see, there's several cuts. So this is the festival cut, I think. But I think there was one subsequent to this. This is, I think, cut in June. But it was entered just last month. It was in the Tribeca Festival and also in the Sundance Festival. But I think it's a slightly different version to the end. But this is the end I like best.
So we've got time code running in the bottom, but that's why.
So it's a working film still, yeah.
Because it's work in progress. So shall we see the clip?
Dad used to say, when you hear those bullets come close to you, so close that they sound like flies, he said, that's when you know you're a man, he said after that. To him, a man is somebody that actually went to war.
People say the Indian Wars ended in 1890. All of us Lakota, we know that the war is still going. Just like anything that, you know, lasts for a long time, it gets more bitter and more gruesome. You know, that's how it's getting. They may not be out there killing us in, you know, with guns and by numbers. They're out there killing us with just their everyday walk of life. You know, just the United States, the way they operate on a daily basis is what kills us, you know?
Do you want to explain that a little more?
Yes, that is Wounded Knee, which some of you may have heard of, is the site of a massacre in 1870, I think, where 100 or so Native Americans were killed by the cavalry, and it's ever since been a site of remembrance and of pilgrimage, and every year, I think it's dated in February, that was filmed in February this year. There's a big get together there, and this year was actually, I've been there twice before, and this year was the most violent. And so the film, that scene reflects the atmosphere currently on the reservation, how the fight against abuse and racism really is not improving. So it's deliberately dark. It's not a happy ending. But the boy, or the main character is George. He's 19, and we've traced his coming of age really. And there is, just prior to that scene, in fact, the opening scene of that is Dad Guy walking away from the camera, walking away from the trailer where they live. And what I like about that scene is what you hear. I don't know if you're aware of it. The sound you're hearing is the flags fluttering, which is then part of the next shot of their march to Wounded Knee. And I really like that cut. But they just had an argument, basically. We filmed for 5 years, and just at that moment, in February this year, they had a big bust up, and they then go to Wounded Knee, and there's a lot of anger and aggression there. But they're a big family. I think they have about 13 children, I think, living in a couple of trailers on in pretty squalid conditions, I have to say. It's been going there over the last few years. It's been a tremendous eye-opener for me to realise the plight of so many Indians in the States. And they live in that sort of, it's a bit like being in Africa. It's the closest you're going to get to Africa in America. And it is really deeply shocking. And Rapid City also is a pretty racist city, I've discovered.
How does that work economically on an indie film budget, filming over 5 years? And how does that work for you? Because, I mean, obviously...
Well, financially it doesn't work. That is
so is this a labour of love for you?
Well, it's commitment, yeah. I mean, I knew the director, so it's myself and a director, an English director, who I've worked with before on lots of other things. And it was put through a New York-based production company, and the producer was also recorded the sound, so it's a very small crew, which is, it can be really useful sometimes. And so you live and breathe the film. And so you digest it in the evenings over a beer. You talk about what you're going to do, where you might go the next day, and what might happen, because none of it is scripted. Nothing. It's all these microclips. Nothing is scripted. So you have to interpret what happens when you turn up. And that Wounded Knee march I think it's a 6-mile march, and I ran the entire 6 miles to cover that. And then when you get there, you've then got to be aware of what's going to happen and what might happen. But it's a commitment, yeah. And so once you've done a couple of trips, and you've got a relationship going, you want to carry on. And although the first trips were for nothing, when funding came through from Tribeca and other people, and actually October last year, they managed to get a significant funding from ITVS in Nebraska to finish the film, really, which is what they've done. So there's no money in it.
So on that note, let's get the lights up. At the back, the question that I didn't take earlier, let's start there. And let me see some other hands here. Can we get some mics coming? Chap in the middle and then the lady in the middle, please. So let's take the question at the top. And would you say who your question is addressed to, or maybe it's to both?
Yeah, it's to Steve. It's about the 3 documentaries that we just saw.
Can't see you. Oh, I see.
You were talking about, establishing a relationship with each one of the characters you've shot. How do you approach those people? I mean, you don't just go up to them and, in case of the Hannah and Ricky documentary, you don't just go up to them and be like, can I document your addiction? Or, how do you approach those people?
Well, all that groundwork is done before I get there by the director. So that's one of the advantages of working with somebody else. They have formed a relationship already, and they know about me. Or sound recorders as well, and they know what to expect. They would have probably seen films we've shot in the past on a DVD or whatever, and then have some idea of what's to come. And then we turn up and we start filming, and you make that as painless as possible. Really, one tries to be as discreet as possible. That's crucial, I think, in documentary. And that's where a documentary drama is very, very different, of course, very different. Because whereas Tim would be able to shoot quite close in on prime lenses, because you're working with professionals. On documentary, you're not working with professionals, so you can't have the camera here. You have to be I think you have to be further away to allow the scene to unfold without you influencing it with the camera. And this is something I see changing a lot at the moment. With the 35mm sensor cameras, and means you have to be in closer.
Interesting. I never felt that watching your material. I always felt, even though you may have been far away.
I was, yeah. Well, that's just
you've shot it in a way that made the viewer feel you were right in there with the characters all the time.
I bet that comes across. Yeah.
Definitely does.
Is the microphone there? Yeah.
My question's for Tim, and it was. Sorry, I'm here.
Okay.
And I wondered how you played that line between keeping something looking realistic and kind of using your artistic license. And I was thinking particularly about, if there isn't an excuse to have a light source somewhere, whether you kind of make one up and say, well, I'm going to pretend there's a window or a light, something, and just kind of talk around that, how you make those decisions.
Yes, that's generally what. There's 9 times out of 10, you can always usually find a source to motivate your lighting, unless you're in a cupboard or. But then it's a little crack in the gap in the door in the cupboard that sort of would sell the cheat of a motivated lighting. To be honest, I don't think about it too much, because I tend to just rely on my gut and instinct and what feels right. And sometimes you actually, even though there is a source in the shot where technically you ought to mimic that, it may just look a bit boring, and you want to splash something completely unusual on the actors that doesn't really have any recognizable direction in the scene. I remember something that the late, great Freddie Francis once told me. He said, there's good lighting, there's bad lighting, and there's the right lighting. And I always think about that, and sometimes the right lighting is not what you would think at all, what you think ought to be the best lighting. So if it looks good to you, if it looks right to you, then it's going to be right for everybody else. So I wouldn't get too bothered about that.
Okay, we have a question here. Could you pass your mic to the lady on your same row who had their hand up? You got it? That's great. We'll take this one and then that one.
This one's for Steve. I was just wondering, as a cameraman, you obviously have your strengths and weaknesses. Is there anything for us that you feel like you should say or give advice to that like we should put into practice, or you know, as we go along into the industry?
Wow, yeah. I think you have to have a good story. Well, that's the crucial thing, really. Have a good story. And I don't know how familiar you are with visual grammar. Go into a cutting room. That's the one piece of advice I would give above all others, really, is that you need to go and sit in a cutting room, an edit suite, and just see what's needed to tell a story. You know, how you construct a sequence. Because I mean, aside from the story itself, one imagines you have a good story. How you tell that in pictures, because that's what we do. And that's what you as filmmakers will do. You have to tell a story in pictures. And how do you do that? How do you condense a scene that's in front of you, whether it's drama or it's factual? How do you distill that for a viewing audience? How do you overuse word? How do you immerse the audience in that scene and then make it all believable, whether you've got professional actors or you haven't? And that's what you have to do. And to do that best, to learn that craft best, is, you know, watch lots of films, and if you can, get into a cutting room with a good editor and just see how they do it, what you need, and what's missing, and how you get around what's missing as well.
My question's for Tim. I was wondering. I was wondering because obviously when you let's say you position a camera and you frame, that adds to your shot depth. I was wondering if you have any tips for like lighting. So when you light to create depth of light, do you have any essential tips?
Good question. And I do think about that a lot, because I'm always looking for depth in the lighting and chiaroscuro and layering of light and shade. And I actually tend to start at the back and work my way forward. So on a big set, I'll light the background first, and then just bring everything forwards. And almost the last thing would be the actors in the foreground, because I know that if I can create depth in the background, everything will fit in very nicely. If you just light the foreground, you'll end up trying to chase your tail to create the depth later on.
Who's got the microphone in the middle? Somebody said, yep, okay. And then after that, I'm going to take two more because we're already over. So whoever's holding the microphone now. Yep, the lady.
You both say that you come from like a photographic background. What made you choose documentary and drama respectively?
I suppose my interest in photography still is. It came out of street photography, photojournalism. I like, and still like that. People like, Don McCullum was a huge influence on me. His work, and Tony Ray Jones, and people like that. Martin Parr, I suppose, to an extent. But that sort of real life, and the fact that you could. I still do every day. I try and emulate what they do, with a camera. I always got those ideas, images, amongst many others, in my head, and you try and copy that. So real life was the best. For me, I thought if you do it in real life, you can capture it in real life as it happens in front of you, then everything else is quite easy.
Tim?
Well, I'm afraid I sort of profess a much more shallow approach, because, I came out of sort of a more glamorous type, not glamour photography, but more glamorous type style of photography. And I just love to see things really light up the frame. I love to see things that you would look at with your eye, and then you could take it somewhere else entirely. And I always had a gut feeling that with filmmaking and film lighting, that's really where I could exercise that passion, is that transport people in the theatre or on television and show them something that they just don't quite see with their eye. A little bit of magic, I suppose.
One last question down here, whoever has the mic. Yes.
This is a question for Steve. Why do you choose the topics that you do, and how do you convince companies into funding them?
Well, I don't choose the topics, crucially. I am brought in once that decision has been made. But I would naturally gravitate toward that sort of subject, I suppose. I like those personal stories, human stories, and how you tell their story, that story, with a camera, with pictures, and how you convey that emotion. I think that's what we all do in a way. But I'm drawn to that.
And I think that's actually the story of really everything you've heard today and yesterday for those of you who are with us. It is ultimately, absolutely all about storytelling. Would you agree?
Fundamental.
Yeah.
And character.
And character.
Character.
Yes.
In fact, before I came here, I had an interview for a job which I got, thankfully. But interestingly, the director was saying, I'm tired of the networks always trying to drive all these programs through plot progress. I want this film to be about character.
We could go on forever. But let me say a huge thank you to Steve and Tim for sharing their expertise with us.